Hey, everybody. Good evening. Happy Thursday. Welcome to another Digital Dungeon Master broadcast. Tonight, as you guys can see, I have a special guest, Josh Watmough. Welcome, Josh.
Why? Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. Taking time
Yeah,
out
no
of your,
problem at
your
all.
busy day and stuff, you know? Taking time out of the snow.
Oh yeah,
So we're going to be with you guys for the next hour-ish or so, talking about RPGs, talking about art. Gonna find out how Josh got into gaming and all that good stuff, and then we have a surprise for you. Josh is going to be showing a little bit of the new Fantasy Age background or the theme for Fantasy Age. Oh, I can't wait! So I haven't even seen it yet. So, oh.
yeah.
All right.
Well, I haven't even started yet. We're gonna
So
start
you
it
haven't
tonight.
seen it either.
We're gonna go through some of this work process together.
That's awesome. Yeah, that'll be cool. So, Josh, how long you been playing these nerdy games that we love so much? How long you been playing D&D and
I have
stuff?
been playing these tabletop games for a long time.
These devil worshipping games,
Yeah.
according to
Yep.
Dan Rather back in the 80s. Did you get that talk from your parents back then?
No, luckily, my parents were very religious, but luckily that was something that they didn't even phase them. They didn't even think anything about it.
That's cool.
So,
My
so I
mom was
avoided
cool
all
with it.
that.
Yeah, you're lucky you avoided it. I didn't. My dad actually sat me down and was, he was, my mom was okay with it, and thank goodness for my mom. I'm sure my mom probably talked my dad out of it, but
Hmm.
my dad didn't like any of my friends anyway. They all thought that, they were bad influences, and yeah. So he thought, oh, devil worshiping, brr. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, thanks to my mom, I think she saved all my basic D&D stuff. So, yep. But that was the first time that I actually cussed in front of my parents. I actually said, I can't believe you believe this shnikes. And my mom was just mortified. It was like Ralphie in Christmas Story, when he
Yeah.
accidentally said it. But yeah,
Oh,
I got,
fudge.
yeah, exactly. I got more in trouble for that than I did the actual, playing D&D. But so what all games do you got going on now?
What am I playing in or running?
Yeah. What are you playing in? Well, did your friends get you into it back when you were younger, or was it
Well,
something that
it
you just saw on the shelf and caught your eye? Or
it's a funny thing. I don't really recall exactly how it started because it's been there for a predominant part of my life. But when I was young, I'm pretty sure that my mom might have picked up a book or something from like a lawn sale.
that's cool.
Yeah, and I couldn't have been. I think I was probably somewhere in like the second or third grade area.
Yeah, nice. I think I was in. It was '84, so I guess I was probably in fourth grade I think it was fifth grade. Yeah, because
Hmm.
my parents held me back a year in fifth grade because I was older, so they wanted
Hmm.
me to. No, that I was younger, so they held me back. Thanks, mom. Thanks, dad. But yeah, so I saw these kids playing on the playground, which was kind of downhill and then back uphill, and there were a bunch of those old nasty ass tractor tires that are like 8 foot tall. So they were building castles out of them, and all those spiders and water inside of the tires, and they'd come up every day after PE. They'd come up just black, and all you could see is just eyes and teeth because they were just so dirty. And I was like, man, that's that's what I want to play. It was fun because they were like sword fighting and everything, and they thought I was picking on them. They're like, "What are you, one of those older kids that are picking on us too?" And I'm like, "No, I want to play with you guys." So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I got into it. And
And then that was it. You were hooked.
that's it. Yeah, and then I actually got kicked out of school because that's all we did was play D&D. And back then, if you skipped school, nobody gave a crap. They just wanted to graduate you anyway. But when I became a senior, that's when they started cracking down. And yeah, So I got kicked out of school because of Dungeons and Dragons. So my dad was kind of right in a little in a
Yeah,
little sense there, but
the devil
uh,
did it.
yeah, yeah. So what kind of games you got going on now?
I actually run a game every week, and I have it's kind of like a conglomerate of a lot of different stuff, but it's like a apocalyptic kind of setting,
Awesome.
modern day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. I like to do experiments when I put games together, and they're kind of like social experiments. So I really love to see how people react to maybe situations that are a little bit morally ambiguous, and to because a lot of times people, even no matter what they try to play, they oftentimes are themselves no matter
Yeah.
what. And even if they try to be like the bad guy or to do this, they oftentimes tend to always gravitate towards their own moral compass in real
Yeah.
life. So I like to push that boundary a little bit in the gameplay.
Well, that's cool. Do you think you see better? Now, this may be a pretty good question. Do you think you have better results with your social experiments between a modern day scenario and maybe a little less with like a fantasy or something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
100, because it's relatable, right?
yeah,
Like you can, but if you play
exactly.
in a fantasy world, it is a fantasy world, so you're probably more apt to do whatever you'd like, like.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So how long? Everybody knows that you have all these beautiful map packs and stuff on your website and on Fantasy Grounds and stuff. How'd you get into art? I mean, is this something that you were just given this talent like
Mhm.
naturally, or is it something that you actually went to school or had lessons as a kid or
Well, I don't really believe in that whole talent kind of thing. I
gotcha?
think that it's all just hard work.
Hmm.
And I've actually taught a lot of people to draw that have had started off with what you normal person would consider to have no artistic abilities whatsoever. And so, especially drawing, one of the major differences between like drawing and painting is that kind of conceptualization before you begin. Drawing is oftentimes about finding the edge of something, like hard lines,
Yeah,
and painting is oftentimes about losing those edges. And so it's a different kind of thought process there. I definitely am a drawer, and so my artistic kind of endeavors kind of go from that. But yes, I've always drawn, like it was something that I had done from a very early age. And then um, I never went to school for art, but I was right after high school. I was accepted to Parsons in New York City, but I never
oh
actually
wow,
went.
wow,
Yeah, I ended up getting into tattooing, and then I tattooed most of my adult life. And then when I got kind of tired of that, I just naturally gravitated back to tabletop RPGs, and
yeah.
that's where I've been since.
Man, I I would, as a if I were an artist, I would be so scared to be a tattoo artist too, because I would be so afraid that something didn't turn out the way someone wanted it or something like that. Did you have that fear? Because I that would just be a total fear for me. I'd be like, oh man, I don't want to mess this up.
Well, yeah, I think when everybody starts out doing anything, you have that fear.
Yeah,
But as you progress, and I had to come to a lot of like realizations during that time of my life. One of them was being like, okay, so if I think it looks good, and my frame of reference is probably a little bit more advanced than somebody who is not coming from the same background as I do,
yeah,
then like what I see as a minor issue in something, they're probably not even going to notice. And so there's a lot of that realization about your skill level and what you can kind of take away from a particular observation.
yeah. When I was younger, I used to play baseball and I had a friend named John, and he was always a good artist. And then we had lost contact, and then I had run into him again, and he was an insanely talented tattoo artists also. And
Hmm.
he was showing me, he had his portfolio book and he was showing me some of this stuff. And he was telling me that he didn't even trace it. He would just look at the part of wherever the art was going, and he would just freehand it. And
Hmm.
that would just make me, if and I know a lot of artists probably trace it, but not tracing it, that would just make me just totally flip out.
Yeah.
So within the last how long you been with Fantasy Grounds now? Probably close to about a year now. I'd say probably
No,
no,
6 months.
6 months. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
were brought on full time with Fantasy Grounds. So and you're
Yeah.
not the new guy anymore, which is
I
cool.
know.
Yeah. So how's that been for you? Coming on to Fantasy Grounds and stuff.
It's been great. I really enjoy it. Yeah,
Isn't it?
it's
Isn't it awesome, man?
yeah, it's pretty great. Yep.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's cool to work with a bunch of talented people, whether it be you with art or everybody else with the program part of it, and Jen
Yeah.
with all of her social media expertise. It's a good team, man. I'm impressed with the way, and I've been with the company for 2 years now,
Hmm.
and I'm just impressed how everything is like a well-oiled machine, and everything just works, and
Hmm.
everybody knows what they're doing. It's really cool, man. I like it.
Yeah. 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 I
It's
really
been
enjoy
it's
it as
been a
well.
fun 2 years, and it's definitely a different type of job than I've had my whole life. I've pretty much been in retail my whole life. I started at 15 years old, bagging groceries, and then became a meat cutter and did meat cutting until I was in my, you know, 30s, and then I went into store management at Walmart, and talk about stress, and
Mm.
so many hours a week, and it's this is a whole different ball game, man. Don't have to fight traffic. Don't have to drive an hour to work each way anymore.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I always say that I have the best job, man. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. It's pretty. I don't know. Mine's pretty good.
Yeah, yours is pretty good too. Yours is a lot more technical than mine. So, so you wanna get into the show and tell of the stream?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Kind of
We
show
can
off the
jump in
theme.
here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I can kind of go over some of the ways that I approach a theme, and I'll get your input as we go along here,
Sure.
and we'll begin to create these pieces of art here.
That's awesome.
And I guess I'll do a screen share for you.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
And yeah, here it is. Here's your lovely rule set here.
Yeah.
And I made a character. And so what we'll do is this is using all of the art assets except for the buttons on the side here.
Hmm.
All of this is just core RPG artwork. And so that gives me a really good basis from where all of the art's drawn from. And do you want me to make the theme an extension, or do you want me to make it actually part of your rule set?
Whatever would be easiest for you.
I don't think that it's not going to be much of a difference to me either way. But we can break this down and look at some of the different elements here. And I don't know if people are interested in like the technical side of how this is done, or we can just get into the art creation. But
Sure.
we can break this down, as you can see on this actual character sheet. Each one of these little windows is its own art. It all comes from one particular type of image that's reproduced over and over again. But we have the character sheet, which is the actual whole window here that's then populated by these other images. I can change, if you want, all of these tabs. We can do brand new combo group boxes in here. It looks like that these are maybe like the field light frames for all of these different little pieces. So this entire first page here is pretty much comprised of maybe 3 images, that's reproduced.
Oh, wow.
And it's the same ones here again.
I figured
Oh,
each
yes.
one of those boxes would be its own image.
It's one particular image. And what it is, it's
What
each
is it,
time
just
that it's
stretch?
called, yeah, it's like a new kind of representation. Like the way that these are created is through nine slicing. I don't know if you know what that is,
No clue.
but yeah, I can show you and kind of give you an idea about this.
So is that what the whole 1-for-1 ratio and 6-to-9 ratio means? Is it kind of just distributes
Nope,
equally? No?
nope. That has to do with like your screen resolution and the proportions of it, right? So like 6-to-9 ratio means that or it's usually like that. I forget what the actual different types of resolutions are, but it's how many units per width to depth kind of situation. So how high your screen is as opposed to how wide it is.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought I read something that it was involved with graphics too, but then again, I don't know anything about that, so.
So a long time ago, I made like a template for creating themes. And let me just pull out one of these images and I'll kind of give you, I'll throw this into Photoshop so it'll be easy. So here we have Photoshop. I work primarily in Photoshop. And this is like a character, this would be character select. So if you were in Fantasy Grounds, and you go to your character selection screen, it's a representation of this particular window.
Okay.
The way that it's set up is each of these red corners are like stationary, and these blue areas on the sides are the areas that get repeated as the window stretches, as we change the size of it. And this green area in the middle is the centerpiece, and that also gets tiled left and down. Everything gets taken from the top left corner and kind of gets brought out from there. So if we go back into Fantasy Grounds and I grab the little tool area down here, where we stretch this, you can see that the sides stretch out, but they're actually just repeating.
Yeah. That makes sense, and it's cool that it does that instead of like I had thought that there were images for everything. That's good. It makes sense to do that, actually.
Yeah, totally. And what it does is you're setting up the graphics in a way that is that the Fantasy Grounds can actually identify each part, because we set up in the XML code, we tell it where everything is supposed to be and how it's supposed to be divided up. So if we get rid of this, let's see here. And we'll go through, I'll show you how I kind of put together my color palette. We'll figure out your color palette today, and we'll do the whole 9 yards here.
Right on.
So here is the Fantasy Age actual like logo words that you had sent me. And I think that we had talked about doing like black, red, and gray for like the theme.
That would be for Dragon Age, but Fantasy Age, I mean, we could just keep it within this color, like maybe, I don't know, whatever goes with this goldish yellow.
Sure. I mean, we can certainly use these colors if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, if Dragon Age is red and black, and the Dragon Age extension will be ready down the line. And the Dragon Age extension will change a couple of the buttons within this core set that you're working on now. Mm-hmm. It will change a couple of things on the character sheet. I think it'll get rid of one of the ability score boxes.
Right.
So instead of 9, there will be 8. And I'm not sure. Seeing that the windows repeat, I'm not too sure if there will be any changes that need to be made from a cosmetic standpoint. But
sure.
And
we can go through.
Yeah, on the monster sheet there will be one less box also. But other than that, the game is predominantly the same.
Yeah, I can go through and we'll want to create like a separate type of image for the chat window. You want to have some definition in there between the different windows, just so that we can you get a nice cohesion and a little bit of if you open up every window and it looks exactly the same, it can get really boring really fast.
Yeah.
And so we want to avoid that. I usually like to do a separate one for story and notes and all of those reference type material. And so when you're thinking about this theme, do you get any particular type of imagery in your head? Well, like just how you envision it?
You mean from a color standpoint, or do you mean
Um,
from?
well, let's talk about like the feel of it. Do you want it to look clean and crisp? Do you want it to look like
I would.
worn and used?
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, that's a good. I don't think it would be dark and gloomy like Dragon Age would be,
Hmm.
or or Shadow of the Demon Lord. I see Fantasy Age as maybe a little bit more high fantasy, so I would imagine it to be a little bit more cheerful, maybe colorful.
All right, like vibrant.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I would imagine it. I don't think it would have that worn out look, like maybe something like an industrial or steampunk type of look. I
Hmm.
couldn't see that. But I would imagine something a little bit more bright and vibrant because of it, it being mostly high fantasy.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things that I think is kind of important is the theme should kind of reflect the feeling of the entire campaign
Yeah.
because it's a very mood setting kind of I mean it's what you're going to be staring at the entire time you're playing, right?
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
so taking all of that into account, I feel is kind of important. How about do you see it as having like softer angles, or do you think that it's going to have more like sharp angles? Um,
Hmm. I would imagine maybe something sharper. What do you think? Do you think something rounded would be good, or do you think the sharp, or do you think it would just be like a personal preference, or?
yeah, again, I mean, it is, if we look back at, we can kind of go off of like the Fantasy Age logo if you want to kind of like,
Oh, that's
uh,
yeah, because it does have very sharp points and
yep, it's very sharp, angular.
yeah,
It's got, you see how it's beveled and it's got this like shadowed edge and a highlight edge.
yeah,
Uh, Gives it a much more satisfying angular look.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
also a very subtle drop shadow on it, and it's got a white outline around it. And so, if we want to use this as our basis, we can kind of mimic a lot of the same kind of texture, a lot of the same
yeah,
kind of color scheme, and the way that it's been laid out.
yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I didn't even notice that until until you started talking about sharp or round, and I'm like, well, I think the logo is a little bit more sharp, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's perfect actually.
Yeah, and I kind of like, if we zoom in here a little bit, the way that this kind of interacts and some of the actual letters kind of bleed into each other.
Yeah,
And so we might use some of that in our design sense as well, where we create different layers and have them kind of bleed into each other like this.
yeah, that's cool.
I'll probably use some rounded areas in certain parts of it, depending on, because you do want a little bit of variety in the way that things work. You don't want to have it the same kind of repetition over and over again.
Yeah,
And I'll probably come up with a less kind of dramatic texture for some of our elements as well. It'll be a little bit more subtle. And I'm going to do a little bit of a variation in the color theme here. I'm going to definitely use this kind of turquoise color. I think that that'll work really well. But we want this to kind of stand out in your background, the actual Fantasy Age logo. So we want it to kind of set itself apart from the rest of the imagery. And so I'm not going to do anything as high contrast as this. Everything else is going to be a little bit more tame. And so I usually set up things in library. So let's make a new library here for you. I create a new library. I've been working on a new Western theme.
Oh man, I bet you it's going to be awesome. If it's anything like that sci-fi one, holy cow!
And so now I'm just going to go in and I'm going to start picking out some of these colors, and we'll make some adjustments to them. And that's going to be our basis from what we're going to do on. And I really like to limit my color palette, especially in the beginning. If you kind of overcomplicate your color palette early on, you can kind of get into some sticky situations. So keeping it as simple as possible is usually great. And I'll just add this color in here. That'll be our first color that we're going to add here. And I'll grab this color, throw this in here too.
Photoshop is an amazing program. I should have took years to learn it. I should have did that years ago.
Yeah, I have literally I spent sometimes 14, 15 hours in this program a day.
Oh man.
And we're going to go, and I'm going to make, we don't want to have, like, this is pretty much just completely black. And we don't want that. I'm actually going to move into a cooler kind of color here. And this is the color that I'll use for my dark areas.
Right on.
Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'll make some variations on these as we move along here. But that's going to be our three basic colors that we're going to start off with.
That sounds good. Looks like a good base for sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to use this as my basis. I'm going to change this a little bit, and if anyone wants to know more about like Photoshop, make sure you can ask questions. I move kind of fast and use a lot of shortcut keys, but you can see here I've got this all lined up, right? Like, so this is 100 pixels in. The entire thing is 600 pixels wide.
Oh, wow.
And so I can make some quick adjustments here if I so deem. Looking back on the way that yours is actually set up, and I can change all of these files and dimensions and whatever we need to make things work. But you can see that there's a very thin kind of area around it that we're using here. So I'm going to mimic that. I don't have to do it exactly, but I want to get kind of close. And so I'm actually going to make a new layer here. And this is just for I'm actually going to just come in here and do 50 by 50 and find this location in here, which is pretty easy to do.
Oh, so you're pretty much just going over the base
Yeah.
with different layers. Oh, it's so smart.
I'm going to make this entire. That's the reason why I made these templates, is so
That's
that
so
I
smart.
could quickly know. So this way, if I design a corner, I know that it's going to stay like right in the corner.
Yeah.
And
Oh wow. That's so smart to do it that way. Yeah, but I use paint.net, and it's a very basic Photoshop type of character, but it has a lot of extensions that adds different features that you can do.
Sure.
And I've gotten pretty good with it over the years, but it doesn't do anything compared to Photoshop.
Yeah. Photoshop is the standard for a reason. I mean, it does work
Oh yeah,
exceptionally well.
I think it was just all of the buttons that scared me, Josh, with Photoshop and all of the different options. I think that's what scared me with that. But
Yeah, it's got a pretty big learning curve, but once you get into it, it's really hard to use anything else.
yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
so we're just going to use this as like our rough here. And I think that the colors that we have here are a little bit. I'm going to start off with this brown color, but I think that it's a little bit too powerful of a color to be a predominant kind of usage here. And I'm actually going to start off with. Let's turn this. I'm going to use some of these like shape tools. And so I'm going to use the rounded rectangle tool. And if I come right up here in the corner, and that's a little bit off. So let's try that again. I can just kind of fill up this entire area. And I could just punch in the numbers and do it a whole bunch of different ways, but I use a lot of shapes for my basis of creating these window items. And then I go back and I change things later.
Wow.
So yeah, if we, it's a very simple. It's slightly rounded on the corners, and this is one of the great things about using a shape is that I can manipulate it after the fact that I put it down. So I can increase this roundedness on the corners, and if I desire, I can change its dimensions without doing a whole lot. But we're basically going with the idea that we're going to go about 50 in on every side for the creation here. Let's change this color. Let's I'm gonna make it, yeah, lighten it up a little bit. So when you are thinking about this theme, and you kind of picture it in your head, do you see it being more like a classic kind of computer UI, or do you want it to be more like each of the windows and whatnot are its own? Did you ever see the industrial theme that I did? Where
No, I have not seen that one yet.
I would say, why don't we come up with some nice design elements and kind of work from there? So have you got your world all figured out yet?
Can I take the fifth on that one? Well, for my personal world, the world of Rakan, yeah, I have a bunch of notes that I've been writing since I was a teenager, and a lot of that stuff I'm having a hard time understanding. Well, not a lot of it, but some of it, because when I was younger, my handwriting was so horrible. So a lot of things that I wrote as a kid, I have a hard time understanding it. So, yeah. But as for the game that's we're going to be playing, the Fantasy Age campaign, I'm not too sure yet on the adventure yet. I'm torn between three different adventures. So, but I've still got time to. It's going to be from a different game, so it's either going to be a Pathfinder adventure path that I like, or a Pathfinder module that I like, or one of the old Advanced Dungeons and Dragons modules. So,
right,
I just need to figure it out. But as for converting it, I don't think it'll be too tough, seeing that Fantasy Age is such a very mechanic friendly rule set. I don't think it'll be too hard.
Have you run fantasy age games before?
I did about 5 years ago. I ran Dragon Age for some people. It was actually Dragon Age was actually the first game as an adult that I had played that wasn't a TSR slash Wizards of the Coast game, and it was the first game that I ran as a game master or dungeon master that wasn't same thing, TSR or Wizards of the Coast. So
Right.
and we actually had a great time with it. I mean, it was actually really refreshing to play. I mean, it doesn't have all the attacks of opportunity and all
Right.
the movement mechanic stuff and
Yeah, I was actually looking. I told you before. I was watching some of your videos on the old videos on the actual game itself, and
those are old. I cringe when I watch some of the old videos. I do.
I
I've
thought it was really
evolved
good.
so much as a DM since I first started. I mean, I've been playing since the early to middle '80s, but I swore that I was never gonna DM because my friends put so much work into it, and they were like, don't bother me right this second. I'm playing in the next game, and I'm like, man, I don't want to have to deal with that. But ever since I started DMing, I love it. I like the whole preparation part of it, and I love
Yeah,
the creativity of coming up with stories and heroes and villains and NPCs and items and creating creatures, and I just like it. It's been fun.
yeah. There's a whole. I think it's a different type of. I wouldn't exactly say that um, it's like it's not very gratifying because I feel like that you put so much effort into it and it never really gets appreciated.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I think that the a lot of the fun that I get out of DMing is that whole like going through all the what if scenarios, and
Yeah.
I like world building.
Yeah, I do too. And I love to create just random encounters, just encounters with maybe a traveling caravan, or you meet an old hermit in the woods, or or
Sure.
if you're traveling. So I have a lot of stuff like that I pre-build ahead of time. Some things I have never used, some things I've used, and but it's just those what ifs, because I like to run a lot of modularized content, but I
Hmm.
always like to throw in my stuff as well, to where in case somebody kind of follows along in the book, they're this isn't part of the adventure and stuff like that, or this
Hmm.
creature doesn't have this ability. So I like to switch things up, and I like to add a lot of my content in there as well, and change names up and add NPCs. And sometimes I have reoccurring NPCs throughout my games, all my different games. Um, so yeah, that's what I like to do.
Yeah, yeah, I like to do that too. When, back when I used to play when I was younger, some of my favorite things were just like creating characters.
Yeah, yeah, yes, heck yeah. My son and I, we used to do that all the time. And for Christmas, I sent him the Dungeons and Dragons character sheet book that he and I filled up every page with characters. His very first character he made was a dwarf in basic Dungeons and Dragons, and he named him Browning Beard. And I mean, just the names that he would come up with were so cute, man. So I gave him that character sheet book and one of the other books that he always used to take home and read as a kid. And so yeah, he was like, Dad, these are your books. And I'm like, I said, I want you to have them. And he said, oh man, that's awesome. So that was cool to see him get
Yeah, for
excited
sure.
about that. I mean, I had got a notification that the package was delivered, and within like 10 minutes, he was already calling me. He was like, "Dad, why did you send me these books? These are yours." I'm like, "No, they're yours now." I said, "I got enough."
I'm sure he was very appreciative of it.
Oh yeah, he loved it. Yeah, when we were down there in Florida, I I had taken him over to the game store because it was his birthday anyway, and got him some tile sets and got him a couple of adventures, and he and his friends they've been playing. He said they've been having a good time with it. Are
That's
you freehanding
awesome.
all that stuff? Man, that is amazing.
Yeah, I'm just drawing.
Yeah, I'm just
Working
drawing.
out.
Just making
Working out
something
some
look
shit.
awesome. Yeah, just that's nothing.
Just working out some shapes.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. See, I've been in the past. I've always done super long campaigns. You know, every time that D&D would come out with a long campaign like Horde of the Dragon Queen or Princes of Apocalypse or the Tomb of Annihilation, it would take a long time to play those. I mean, they're 300-page books pretty much.
Right.
So I told myself, when I started to get back into this, I was like, I'm going to start doing more games, more campaigns using different rule sets that either I've read about and I really like, or my players have requested. So Fantasy Age was one of those, and yeah, it's going to be nice not to be boggled down into the same campaign for, like Princes of Apocalypse, not Prince. Well, that took about over a year, probably about a year and a half. Horde of the Dragon Queen took almost 2 years to do. So I'd rather have a short campaign of a couple of months and then play something else.
Yeah.
So, because that's one thing that my players wanted. We were playing the same characters. I mean, my players, some of my guys played the same character for 4 years almost. So,
Wow.
yeah, they were wanting to just try different things. So that's now
Yeah,
that
for
I'm back
sure.
into it, we're gonna do Fantasy Age. We're gonna do some Dragon Age. We're gonna do some of my homebrew world. We're gonna do some Pathfinder, maybe Starfinder and Talislanta. Just
Yeah, I was actually
a bunch of different stuff, man.
yeah, I was actually looking at Pathfinder 2 the other day, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think they've done a really good job with Pathfinder 2. I appreciate 3.5, but it's not my cup of tea
Yeah, it's
because
very
of the massive amount of rules.
yeah,
But
it's insane.
yeah, and 5e is perfect because it's so rule light. But Pathfinder, I envision Pathfinder. Well, I think of Pathfinder as the middle point between 3.5 and 5e. It's just it's in the middle. It's like just has enough crunch, but it doesn't have too much to where everything starts to get bloated. Like a 3.5.
Sure.
But also in regards to that, I mean the character customization for Pathfinder 2 is just it's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's where they were really pushing the kind of envelope on that is
Yeah.
for the players.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And not only with the classes, but the ancestries, how the races are now called ancestries, and then there's all kinds of subcategories of the gnome, and even though all the other games, Pathfinder did that, 5e does that, but not to the extent to what Pathfinder's done with, you get all of these different everything are called feats now. You got your racial feats, you got your general feats,
Right.
you've got skill check feats. I mean, it's just so crazy with the amount of customization you can do. I mean, and I think from a DM's point of view, I think players love choices. Players love to choose things for their class.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I really like that about Pathfinder. And plus, taking attacks of opportunity pretty much for the most part out of the game, that was another big selling point for me as well. So only some monsters can have the attack of opportunity, and the fighter can, and I think the paladin can at level 8. So it's not like
that was like the whole thing with 3.5. Is like that was a constant, like, did I take a 5-foot step? Did I go further than that? It's like drinking a potion, attack of opportunity, like
lighten the match. Yeah. Your enemy's sister's brother's third cousin can get an attack of opportunity on you from 15 miles away, and that was I think there was a full page or 2 pages of attacks of opportunities, but then there were feats that let you do it more than once a round. And I played in a couple Pathfinder Society games at the game store, and the combat was just way too drawn out because everybody was just attacking and grappling, and oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, that was like the big.
Yeah.
I actually made while I was playing a 3.5 campaign, I made a combat rogue with, I think it was like a spear or a pull-on where he had reach.
Oh.
And I set him up to just be doing attacks of opportunity so he could cover like a huge area of the battlefield. So like anybody I had like the whole thing was just set up for just stand near combat and wait for people to move and just attack them the entire time.
Destroy them, yeah.
Well, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I actually heard one player call another player, "Here we go again, grapple monkey," or something like that. He called him a grapple monkey. It was so good. But yeah, Pathfinder 2 is really good. And, like I said, 5e is awesome as well. But I see Pathfinder 2 as that perfect medium between the two. And Starfinder as well. So you put Starfinder in that same category.
What was the old TSR one? Star Frontier or something?
Star Frontiers, yeah, I believe. Wasn't that a D100 game, I think?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. I remember we did try Starfinder, and we played it for a little bit. But the kid that had the Star Frontier stuff, I can't remember his name. But anyway, he moved, and we didn't have access to it anymore. But then we started seeing this other game because everything that we bought was from the comic book store or from Enterprise 1701 in Orlando, if we could skip school and get over there that day. They were on the comic book shelves, on the comic book racks, there was this game called Talislanta, and we started looking at that, and we actually started playing it, and that's another great game.
And so
it's very rule light. It's there's no elves in this world. I guess the designer hated elves. So it says no elves, but there's still elvish types of races with pointy ears. He just doesn't call them elves, But what I really liked about the mechanic system was 1 to 5 was like a critical failure. 6 to, 9 or something like that was a glancing blow. And I believe like 10 to 14 was like a standard hit. And then you had like a superior hit and then like a critical hit or something like that. So there was like 5 different ranges of rolls that you could do with the D20, and that was pretty cool. And it was also like D&D, basic D&D, where the race and the class were mixed up into like one combo as well, and then there was like a huge skill system that you could purchase skills with and stuff, so that was pretty cool. I mean, they were just an endless amount of race and I think in the core rule book there were 60 or so classes in there. It was, I mean, it's just crazy because we weren't
That's a
used to
lot of
seeing
fun.
that in basic D&D. There was just the elf, the dwarf, the halfling, and then you had the four humans, which were the fighter, the cleric, the thief, and the magic user. So seeing all these other races and stuff that you could be, we were like, wow, this is cool. So we started playing it, and that was the first game that we had played that wasn't, well, the first, I'll take that back, that was the first fantasy game we were playing besides D&D, and we actually played it for, wow, there was one point that we probably played it for a year straight without playing D&D. That was
Wow,
yeah, it was fun. We
that's
used
pretty
to,
cool.
yeah, where we lived, they built this new library. I mean, this beautiful, massive library, and nobody ever went to it. So we would skip school and just get one of the little, rooms off to the side and just hide in there all day and play D&D. And it was so fun. We had a little styrofoam cooler that we would put drinks in and sneak it into the library and sneak our food in there, and that was awesome, man. Good times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend, I think my friend James put his foot through the cooler one time. He didn't mean to, but he got up and he kind of stumbled, and I remember all this ice and water just went everywhere in that room. We thought we were going to get in trouble.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, we had a lot of. We did that for years, man. And then the library actually had Dungeons and Dragons books that you could check out, which was amazing. So they had, like the player's handbook and monster manuals and stuff. So you could go and check those out. And so,
Really?
oh yeah, every day we'd go over the D&D and we'd wipe out the whole section and bring them into the, and then we'd put them back at the end of the day. Oh yeah, man.
Wow, I'm surprised they had those.
Yeah, yeah. The library had them. We were thinking of ways on how we could get the stick, because their books were in better shape than ours. So we were thinking about, we were always debating on how we could get those stickers off, because they were these huge stickers and we couldn't get them off, and we tried we snuck our parents' lighters over there we could try to heat it up, but man, those stickers were like insane. But we were trying to, because their books, like I said, they were in just better shape than ours, and we were like, man, we should switch these books out. They'll never know.
They'll never know.
They'll never know. But yeah, it was a two-story library. So on the second floor, it was all like a reference section, and then on the outer parts there were probably a couple dozen rooms that you could go in and study or read, and we would just get one of the, and we'd always be the only people up there, and yeah, it was fun, good times. Back when we were demon worshippers,
Oh, so that stops
The-
now.
Yeah, yeah,
The old
yeah,
demon worshippers.
yeah. So it looks like you can really invest a ton of time into making a theme.
Oh yeah. So okay. So to make an entire theme,
It
right?
it
Like if I
seems
go
like it would
in.
be massive.
Oh, so if we just break down the number of in the core RPG, you're looking at about 500 different images.
Oh my goodness.
So to replace all of them, like I had to do with my latest that theme the futuristic one.
Oh, that thing is beautiful, man.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Oh, it is.
But to actually create that theme, I had to replace every single image. And when I do a theme like that, I have to do it so that it works across multiple rule sets.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
So it gets pretty intense.
Oh, I bet.
And then once I think I get it finished, and then I have to go through and I actually have to run every single rule set and test it in every scenario that I can possibly come up with to make sure that all the little pop-up windows and everything works correctly. And that can take some time, because if you run into problems, you have to go back to square one, basically.
Wow. So how many hours do you think you had invested into that sci-fi rule set? If you think you would know how many hours you had.
I would probably say that probably like 300 or 400 hours in it.
Oh my gosh!
I would
Wow,
assume, yeah. If it maybe even a little bit more.
man, I can definitely appreciate that though, man. I mean, it looks amazing, and I have about 15 hours of time into putting all the Fantasy Age content into the rule set so far. But wow, 300 at 400 hours, holy cow, man, that's insane.
Oh yeah,
That is
it
insane.
can certainly get a little bit crazy. So I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll just come up with some nice like border graphics kind of things. I will fix some of the stuff. It's a little bit sloppy, and we'll get it all squared away. And we will. So as far as like the lettering that you have, do you want to do any like crazy colors, or do you want to change any of the actual?
Well, I guess as for the font and stuff, I mean, whatever. I don't want you to spend no 300 hours on a theme, man.
Oh,
Just
it's so much easier if I make something specifically for a rule set as well.
yeah. As long as, I mean, I know that you definitely have more of an eye for this kind of stuff than I do. But as for as for a font or anything, I mean something that would just pretty much be, I mean, legible is good. but then again, I don't have that visual artistic eye. So I mean, what I see right now, I'm like, wow, that's going to be awesome for all of the different boxes and borders, and it's awesome. I like how
Yeah, the
it
actual
mirrors
display.
it when you're drawing it on one side to the other.
Yes, yeah. There's a nice little trick to speed things up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this will be the actual display size of it. So obviously it'll be stretched out, but this will be so when you look at it in game, it'll be more like this.
Oh, right on.
So I think that'll work really, really well. I always make things twice as large, and then so I can reduce it down to maintain certain visual quality when I switch it over into the actual art asset.
Yeah.
So if we put it to 100% here, this is twice as large as then it will appear.
Nice. Yeah, so that way it doesn't pixelate and stuff if you make
Correct.
a larger size of that particular file. And I think it has something to do with the lines in the middle, because those can stretch, I would imagine, at a pretty accurate ratio. So yeah. Well, that's cool, man.
Yeah, and we'll add some texture here. Yeah, if you ever need any help with doing anything in Photoshop, make sure you let me know.
I'll let you know the next time I fire up paint.net.
Paint.net.
Have you ever used that program? Oh my goodness.
No.
Don't.
Is it good?
No. No, it's okay. I mean, it's okay for, I just do basic things, you know. I don't do I don't do any drawing. I just take everything that's in the program itself and all of the, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And then all of the options that are downloadable as extensions that you can put into it. Oh, that's cool how you can kind of fade it out transparency wise. That's cool.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah, I just want to have like a very kind of subtle um
I can do that as well if I put like in, but in paint.net I have to do it differently. I have to find a like a texture online, and then I can put it into its own layer, and then I can add color to it, and then I can fade the transparency of it.
So you know what I do, and I have this. Obviously not this time of year because where I live it's terrible out this time of year. But in the summertime, we'll go on walks or whatever, and I'll bring my phone with me, and I'll just take. We're walking by, and I see like the perfect like ground texture. I like take pictures of it, and then I come back, and I can because I make all of my own like textures and stuff, and so I will. Yeah, I actually when I was doing some of those map packs, I would create. I can show you real quick. I would make, if we go, let's do pattern
like
stamp tool.
Walking by a perfect brick wall and you're like, oh, that would be a cool texture or something like that. You just take a picture of it. Yeah, that's cool.
Exactly. So here is, I'll make a new layer here and show you. I made all of these textures. They're completely seamless. And so I can just like, so if we zoom in here,
oh my god, that's beautiful.
Pretty
man.
pixelated.
Yeah, it's beautiful though.
But
and you just stamp it on there. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my
all
gosh.
of these. So we would go to like the beach or whatnot, and I would just, and then I would come back and actually use them as references and draw them out. Use some of the color information, but you can see that it's all just. It's the same texture over and over again. I make them all seamless.
That's awesome.
And so I can paint this stuff in. There's rocks.
Wow, look at that. That's cool.
That's like a... So here's like a grass texture.
Wow.
Yeah. So these will all be available in like Unity, I think, so that you can just like paint over areas. And
that's an amazing feature about Unity is the drawing tools. Folks just haven't really seen that in action yet, and once they do, holy cow, man!
Yeah, this one I made for like debris.
Oh man, that's amazing!
God, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's all stuff that's going to be in Fantasy Grounds, huh? Wow.
Yeah, that'll all be in Unity. So
yeah, nice. So that their border is going to be, that will be for every single window, right? Like the chat window,
this will be specifically for your character sheet. So I'll get your character sheet done because you're going to be doing character thing, right? Tomorrow?
We'll be doing it on
Saturday.
Saturday, yeah. That's cool.
So yeah, I'll get all of your character, and I'll put it in there. I'll probably actually, I'll probably actually make it just part of your rule set.
Right on.
So you won't have to roll out any sort of like
load up an extension around. That's cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Totally appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you bet.
So I've got about another 10 minutes or so. So if you want to answer any questions from anybody that has any questions out there in the Twitch channel. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them now. We'll be on for a little bit more. But hello, everybody. What's going on? Obme and Dave Johnson. Hey, Bell. Sly, what's going on? Yes, we are the demon worshippers of Dungeons and Dragons, all right? Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them now. And thanks again, Josh, for coming on and doing this. I totally appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to do it.
Everybody's being quiet in chat tonight, so.
So quiet.
So how can, because I'm going to be putting this on YouTube as well. So how can everyone find you on the interwebs for your map packs and all that other good stuff?
I have all of my map packs. Well, I have two separate ones. I have ones that I created originally that are my personal ones under my name, and then I have English Rose ones. And so EnglishRoseLLC.com is the website for my company. You can also buy them all through Nord Games. You can buy them on Fantasy Grounds. I think that's pretty much it.
So I've got a question. There are a couple questions here now. Obme is asking you, how much RAM does your computer have for Photoshop? How much RAM do you use?
That's a good question. How much RAM do I have?
I think you have enough to run Photoshop, that's for sure.
Yeah, I have a pretty good rig. Let me just look up.
And then while you're looking that up, Belle has a question too. And she's asking, when you're picking colors, do you keep in mind vision disabilities?
Ooh, no, I don't. But I should probably do that. Yeah. You talking of like colorblinded and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that's what she's insinuating. Yeah, it's a good question now, because I would imagine that's probably overlooked. I mean, because unless you have, I would, seeing this as a neutral, if you have a vision disability and you are an artist, I would imagine, yes, you would take that into consideration because you live it every day. But as someone that doesn't have it, yeah, like you said, it's something that you don't. So,
right.
That's a good. That's a great question, though. I mean, it really is. Mm-hmm. But
yeah,
that's something that I've never thought about. So, if I was an artist, I would probably say no. It's something I haven't taken into consideration. So.
Yeah, what's funny is I actually used to work with a guy that was colorblind, and he was a tattooer, and.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes he would lean over to me, like if somebody brought in a picture, and he'd be like, "Hey, what color is that?"
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He just had all of his colors labeled, so he just would read them.
That's smart. Yeah. That way, the person getting the work done doesn't know.
Exactly.
Because they might get a little maybe concerned if they were like, "Hey, dude, what color is that?" And they heard, if they heard that, they may get a little concerned. But yeah, now that's a great question, though. Did you ever find out how much RAM you had in your machine?
Oh, I got sidetracked.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, let me see here. I have.
I have 64 gig in my machine. I have because of the whole streaming aspect and stuff like that. It just makes everything run better when you're streaming and doing other video related things. So RAM is a lot cheaper nowadays than what it was, 15 years ago when RAM actually started going into machines, or 20
Yeah, I have
years ago.
32 gigs.
Oh, that's a ton. I think most machines have 8 or 16 or somewhere there. So yeah, 32 is awesome. I mean, it doesn't have any kind of jerkiness or anything. It's awesome. So Belle said she's shade blind, but some of her, well, actually, she said many of her family members only see 3 colors. Wow.
Yeah, you can actually look at like color wheels for people that have those issues, and there's like different ones, like different colors show up differently for different people.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, we could talk about color all day, man. Like additive, subtractive colors, like the true color wheel versus what you were taught in school.
Ugh.
We can go on and on.
Yeah, I got a couple color wheels for when I paint miniatures, and it can get pretty daunting. A lot of them look the same to me. So,
well, you know that light and pigments are the opposite. So
yeah.
When you think about mixing colors together, we often do it as pigment based, like if you're mixing paints.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a subtractive way of dealing with color. When you deal with light, it's the opposite. It's additive, and so things work completely differently. The color wheel for light is not the color wheel that we have for pigments.
You wanna? Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a difference because I can tell, but I just don't know all the ins and outs of it like an artist would. Like I was saying, I totally appreciate you coming on. You coming on and stuff and showing how you kind of put together themes and stuff. It's pretty awesome. Also, why don't you, since you're on still, why don't you tell everybody about your Fantasy Grounds streams that you do every week as well, so people can watch your work on the days that you stream on the Fantasy Grounds channel.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Something that you just started doing.
Yeah, on Fantasy Grounds, I stream every Tuesday and Saturday. Tuesday is at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and Saturday is at 3 p.m. And I do image and RPG map creation. So Tuesday nights we do regional and overland map, and Saturdays we do battle map.
Awesome.
So we have an ongoing project, and there's been a lot of interest in themes and how to create them. So I might be starting a third one doing themes.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of people are always wanting to know how to change the colors of the themes and stuff. Who knows? Maybe that will be built in one day to the rule sets. Who knows? I don't know. But that's definitely a heavily requested feature. So, but all right, Josh, thanks for coming on again. Totally appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Top notch, man. You are a rock star, man, when it comes to art. So I'm serious, man. You are. So, all right, everybody. Once again, thanks everybody for hanging out. If you have any comments on YouTube or anything like that, please feel free to put those down in the comment section, and I'll have this up on YouTube here in the next day or two. And if you guys have any questions for Josh, ask away, and then I'll get with Josh and get some answers for you. So thanks everybody again for watching. Totally appreciate it. My next Digital Dungeon Master vodcast, sometime here in the near future, I will have on the one and only Chris Sims from Paizo and Wizards of the Coast. We'll be talking all about D&D, Pathfinder, and a bunch of crazy stories from when he was a kid, because Belle, actually, one of her best friends was Chris's best friend as a kid. So I've got all kinds of inside questions that I'm going to be asking him when he's on. So, all right, everybody, thanks again for hanging out. We'll see you next time. And until then, happy gaming, stay safe, and keep using the awesome Fantasy Grounds program. Bye, everybody.